If money is just paper, why does it behave like a magnet, pulling more money toward the same people over and over again? Why does one person work non-stop and barely move, while another seems to get richer simply by existing? And most importantly, is this broken system accidental or designed this way? This question isn't emotional, it's structural. And once you see how modern economies actually reward wealth, the pattern becomes impossible to unsee. Income feeds you, wealth multiplies you. Most people are taught one rule: work hard, earn more, save more. But here's the problem. Income and wealth don't behave the same way. Income is temporary. You stop working, it stops arriving. Wealth, on the other hand, keeps moving even when you sleep. It earns interest, dividends, rent, appreciation. It compounds. This is where the split begins. Poor and middle-income people rely almost entirely on wages. Rich people rely primarily on assets. And modern economies reward assets far more aggressively than labor. Globally, this gap is extreme. The majority of the world's wealth is owned by a very small percentage of people, while billions own almost nothing beyond daily necessities. That means the people with assets benefit from rising markets, while everyone else just faces rising costs. Compounding, the quiet engine behind inequality. Compounding is often described as the eighth wonder of the world. But that depends on which side you're on. If you invest $10,000 and earn steady returns, time becomes your ally. But if you are poor, you don't experience compounding as growth. You experience it as interest on debt. Credit cards, overdraft fees, payday loans, and penalties grow faster than savings ever could. This is why poverty is sticky. Every emergency forces borrowing. Every borrowed dollar grows into a larger obligation. Over time, money flows upward, not because the poor are irresponsible, but because the system charges them more for survival. Wages are crawling while wealth is sprinting. Yes, wages have risen in many countries recently. But here's the catch. They haven't risen nearly as fast as wealth at the top. After inflation shocks in the early 2020s, global wages recovered slowly and unevenly. Meanwhile, the wealth of billionaires surged at historic rates. That means even when workers feel slight relief, the distance between them and the top continues to grow. Think of it like this. You're jogging uphill, while someone else is riding an escalator down toward you. Even if you speed up, the gap still widens. This is why people feel like they're doing everything right and still falling behind. Because they are competing against exponential math with linear tools. Productivity went up. Paychecks didn't follow. Over the last few decades, workers became dramatically more productive. Technology, automation, logistics, software, everything improved. But paychecks didn't keep up. Instead, the gains from productivity flowed upward into profits, executive compensation, and shareholder returns. Workers produced more value per hour, yet received a smaller share of that value over time. This shift didn't happen overnight. It happened quietly, legally, and gradually. And once ownership structures tilted toward capital, reversing the trend became incredibly difficult. Debt is not a personal failure, it's a structural trap. People love to moralize debt, treating it as proof of bad judgment or lack of discipline. But for most people, debt is not a lifestyle choice, it is a reaction to instability. When income barely covers rent, food, transport, and utilities, there is no financial buffer. One unexpected event, a medical bill, a car repair, a rent hike, can immediately push someone into borrowing just to stay afloat. The problem is not just borrowing itself, but the conditions under which borrowing happens. Poorer households rarely have access to low-interest loans, favorable repayment plans, or financial cushions. Instead, they face high-interest credit cards, overdraft penalties, payday loans, and compounding fees. Each month, a portion of their income disappears into servicing past emergencies, shrinking their ability to move forward. This creates a brutal cycle. Debt limits future choices by locking people into fixed obligations. It reduces mobility by making job changes, relocations, or skill upgrades riskier. It drains cash flow that could otherwise be saved or invested. And the longer debt lasts, the harder it becomes to escape, not because of irresponsibility, but because interest quietly does the damage. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals often use debt in a completely different way. They borrow at low rates, not to survive, but to acquire assets. Their debt is designed to generate returns that exceed its cost. For them, borrowing expands opportunity. For the poor, it constrains it. Same word, debt. Completely different outcomes. Housing, the most powerful wealth divider on earth. Housing is where inequality stops being theoretical and becomes visible in everyday life. It determines not only where people live, but how secure their future is. If you own a home, rising property prices increase your net worth without additional effort. Equity builds automatically with each payment and each market increase. If you don't own, those same price increases show up as higher rent, larger deposits, and ownership drifting further out of reach. The same market movement creates security for one group and stress for another. This single dynamic explains a massive portion of modern inequality. Homeowners accumulate wealth simply by remaining housed. Renters, no matter how reliably they pay, build no ownership stake. Over decades, this gap compounds into radically different financial trajectories, even among people with similar incomes and work histories. Housing also shapes opportunity beyond finances. It influences school quality, neighborhood safety, access to jobs, healthcare availability, and social networks. These factors don't just affect one generation, they cascade into the next, reinforcing advantage for some and limitation for others. Social mobility is real, just rare and uneven. Societies love stories of upward mobility, the person who made it against the odds. But statistically, where someone is born still plays a powerful role in determining where they end up. Children born into poverty are more likely to attend underfunded schools, experience health challenges earlier in life, and grow up in environments with fewer professional connections. None of these factors make success impossible, but they raise the difficulty level significantly. Effort matters, but effort operates within constraints that are not evenly distributed. Economic mobility exists, but it is slower and more limited than popular narratives suggest. In many developing economies, structural barriers make upward movement rare. In wealthier countries, the latter exists, but competition for limited rungs is intense. The result is not a lack of talent, but a lack of access. Poverty steals time before it steals money. Here's a truth rarely discussed. Poverty doesn't just cost money, it steals time. When you're poor, everything takes longer. Public transport instead of private, long queues instead of quick services, emergency fixes instead of preventive care, side jobs instead of skill building. Rich people buy time. Poor people spend it solving problems created by lack of money. And time scarcity makes planning, learning, networking, and risk-taking incredibly difficult. That's why poverty reproduces itself, not through laziness, but through exhaustion. When wealth buys influence, rules start to bend. Extreme wealth doesn't just buy comfort, it buys access. Large concentrations of money shape policy, taxation, regulation, and public narratives. That doesn't require conspiracy theories, just incentives. When those with the most resources influence decision-making, systems naturally favor asset protection over wage protection. This is why tax structures, loopholes, and financial instruments often benefit capital holders more than workers. Not because everyone agreed to it, but because power followed money. So why do the rich get richer? Because wealth compounds. Because assets grow faster than wages. Because debt punishes the poor and rewards the rich. Because housing builds equity for some and drains income from others. Because time, influence, and opportunity are unevenly distributed. And because modern economies are optimized for ownership, not effort. Understanding why the rich get richer and the poor stay trapped isn't about blaming anyone, it's about seeing the system clearly. Once you understand how debt, housing, and power actually work, you stop playing the wrong game. For more videos that explain the world the way it really works, like and subscribe.